on that 2027 date. Like I said, analysts have looked at this year and next year. For sure, that's just not happening at this point. 2027 is a lot of times brought up, and we talked about this. I don't even remember if this was on the mic or not. How the reason Putin's calculus for taking Ukraine was that come probably around this time, it just wouldn't have been viable. There just wouldn't have been a possibility for Russia economically, socially, militarily to be able to invade Ukraine. Can you highlight why that 2027 number is so important for kind of all those reasons, and with Xi and everything, as well as to basically why by 2027 China has to invade Taiwan?
So one of the biggest factor is Xi Jinping's age, because like Putin, he has to personally oversee the invasion for it to happen. Now we're already getting some news like Putin has some issues, right? He sometimes you see videos, he walks kind of funny and all these things. Same thing with Xi. The health of the dictator is very important, because if he personally wants to see the war, he'd have to be cognitively ready for that. And we know what happens if somebody is not cognitively ready to oversee something. Like, it obviously isn't going to go well. And he's not going to let this up, right? So that's just one of the factors. The second is the 2027 date also coincides with the end of his third term, which is every 5 years. So in my view, if he wants to get another term, eventually I think he will if he doesn't do it. But one of the big argument is, can he really lead us anymore if he's unable to even do this whole Taiwan thing? And so he has to show people that even if he doesn't do the invasion, he has to show people that the military is ready, or what aspects are ready, to the people in the party for him to still gain the support. Because at the end of the day, I think if he wants to rule on some level of legitimacy, he has to gain some level of support. And then the third point is the invasion. The 2027 date is sort of the middle of China's whole be ready by 2050, dominate the world kind of narrative. So
can you highlight that a little bit, like what the 2050, the initiative that they kind of put forth with that year and everything?
A few years ago in DC, because of a book called 100-Year Marathon, everybody's idea was that China plays the long game, that they're going to establish themselves as the key power around the world by the end of this decade, so 2030. By 2050, they can actually surpass the United States and others and be the most dominating power around the world. So the agenda of the 100-Year Marathon is to surpass the United States eventually by 2050. Now, clearly, it's being hindered by what's happening in China, but that idea was by 2027, their military should be capable of taking the island of Taiwan without considering all the military factors. So you take Taiwan first, you basically unlock what's called the first island chain, which is a series of countries that run from South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, the Philippines, Thailand. It's like a artificial line of countries that pushes China's military at bay or back into their near sea, rather than allowing them to completely go around the Pacific Ocean. But if you take Taiwan, then it gives strategic importance, because you now have broken through the Bashi Channel, allowing your submarines and things like that to go around the ocean and to basically, obviously you can't avoid detections because of technology, but it allows them to operate more around the world, project their power, opens. And then if Taiwan falls, it also gives them a lot of what's called a bandwagoning effect, which is that, this democratic island you couldn't protect, right? The United States couldn't protect it. That means many countries, even Japan, South Korea, the Philippines, Thailand, Vietnam, they might start to think that if the US can't protect us from China, the only way we can survive is we become allies of China. So that shifts the entire global balance of power to China. And so that's also why it's important to take Taiwan. But to do it in 2027, it's really a date that's calculated based on their preparedness, their economic power, the potential deterioration of the United States global comprehensive power as well. And at that point, it's the perfect time. But I think, again, I think that's not, it might not happen. You never know. But at this point, at least, based on a current assessment of the situation, I don't think it's happening.